So back when I was in Beijing, I was part of a Beijing Women's Network, and I was personally in charge of all of the physical and emotional well-being courses and workshops. One of our most popular courses was actually self-defense, where we partnered with a local Krav Maga center. And so many women would come every single time we hosted this because taking a self-defense course isn't something that women might feel comfortable doing by themselves. But because we host this only for women, then we would have a whole group of females coming together to really just practice punching and hitting each other, defending, and they wouldn't feel like, oh, I'm going against a guy who has been practicing this for years. And so I really do encourage women to take these courses to understand what are the basic and fundamentals of self-defense. It's not necessarily like you need to push them, but it's just how do you break away from them. Hi, everyone. Welcome to 北腔南调, aka Cultural Collision. I'm Melody.
I'm Victoria.
And today we have a crucial episode that focuses on women's safety in different aspects of life. Whether you're a solo traveler exploring new horizons, navigating work environments, or simply going about your daily routine, personal safety is a priority. We'll dive into how women can protect themselves, taking into account the diverse safety measures required in various locations around the world. So let's get started and learn how to navigate the world with security and peace of mind.
I think our listeners know recently there was a news that a Chinese girl who lived in Sydney, she traveled solo to Maldives by herself, and she stayed at a very famous 5-star hotel, and she was sexually harassed by the butler. And then she reported to police, but no arrests were made days after this incident. So we really want to talk about this topic, how women can protect themselves, whether you are traveling or at workplace.
So let's start off with safety measures that we can take when traveling alone. There's a lot of different factors that we need to consider because there's so many steps when we're traveling, right? There's travel, there's transportation. Once we get to the place, there might be some cultural aspects too that we might have to navigate, as well as the lodging. So Victoria, you've traveled alone to places before. How do you make sure that you are safe during your travels?
So last time I traveled by myself was December in 2022. So I traveled to Yunnan province. I think that's a little bit too outside of China. So for now and in China is pretty safe, but still like the hotels you're booked, the place you're gonna go, I will say definitely make sure one or a couple of your friends, close friends, know where you are going to and know your daily routine. And make sure you report your safety in the morning or like middle of the day or before you go to sleep. So make sure someone is aware where you are and also they know you are safe. Also, I think other than like traveling, people tend to meet new friends at different places, right? So if you go to a bar, if you go to a place with strangers, make sure your friends know you are going out with someone and know where you are. Like, what's your plan and when you're gonna go back home. I think that's very important for like women's safety when you in a like strange place.
Yeah, I definitely agree, especially when you're meeting people that you don't know in a place that you're not very familiar with. I think another thing is like transportation is something that you have to do when you're in a new place, whether it be public transportation, like taking the subway or the bus, or being in a taxi. And I'd say, if possible, when taking a taxi, choose to take a ride-sharing app instead. For example, Uber or Lyft if you're in the US, or if you're in Singapore, Grab would be a great one just because then it's tracked rather than jumping into a random car on the street where there isn't some kind of like digital tracking system.
Other than transportation, I think accommodation is a big part of like when you're traveling. So what I did before is we use either staying hotel or staying Airbnb, right? So that's the place you can research before booking the accommodation. You can do a research on the neighborhood and surrounding areas. Look for information on safety ratings, crime rates, or any specific concerns for solo female travelers. I remember on the reviews of the Airbnb, people will say if this is a safe place to stay, or if this is a safety neighborhood. So make sure you check the reviews, especially the reviews from like solo female traveler, and you do research, read reviews and ratings, and consider location accessibility. Sometimes we're under budget to travel to some place new and don't stay like far away from the city center. And when transportation is not very convenient, and it might increase the dangers of your travel.
Agree. But as we're thinking about like the case that kind of inspired us to do this episode today, what would your advice be for somebody who really just did everything right? I mean, she booked a hotel that is a 5-star hotel, very, very well-known, reputable brand around the world, yet she was still raped.
I think that's a terrible, terrible like news. What like terrible thing happened to her, and I think she did whatever she can possibly do. I'll also say bring a pepper spray with you because we are female. Never think about to fight a male. I don't think like we're on the same level. There's a very low chance we're gonna win the fight. So bring something can make you feel safe and use properly the pepper spray. I think that would like something can help you, or with the whistle, right? There's a whistle, and if you pull out the thing, and it will keep raining. It won't stop. It won't stop. That big noise can attract people to come and check on you.
Those two things are such great tools to keep by your side. And they're very small. Like they could just be attached to your keychain or be attached to your car keys. I always had that with me when I was in university back in the States. Never had to use it, which is fantastic. But that was kind of like the first two things my parents gifted me when I went to college, because they're like, you're going to be out on your own. It's important that you have some kind of tool to use if this were to occur to you. And so, as Victoria said, just the size of men is probably bigger than women, and their strength overall is just going to be stronger. So, we probably can't beat them if it was a true physical fight most of the time. However, I think it is also important for women to kind of practice self-defense and maybe take just 1 or 2 classes to understand the basics and fundamentals of how you can protect yourself if you were to encounter this, like that initial step of resistance. So back when I was in Beijing, I was part of a Beijing women's network, and I was personally in charge of all of the physical and emotional well-being courses and workshops. One of our most popular courses was actually self-defense, where we partnered with a local Krav Maga center. And so many women would come every single time we hosted this, because taking a self-defense course isn't something that women might feel comfortable doing by themselves. But because we host this only for women, then we would have a whole group of females coming together to really just practice punching and hitting each other, defending. And they wouldn't feel like, oh, I'm going against a guy who has been practicing this for years. And so I really do encourage women to take these courses to understand like what are the basic and fundamentals of self-defense. I thought it was very interesting. I took like 3 times, and there were just basic things of like how to pull somebody, how to like break away from somebody's strong grip. And it's not necessarily like you need to push them, but it's just how do you break away from them?
That sounds interesting. I think, yeah, definitely. I will recommend if you have the resources around you and you have time, if you want to plan a solo travel, the things you need to learn and you need to practice, and also like feel very simple advice I'll give to the women who travel alone is just run, right? I think don't try to engage or like fight with the people. So what Melly just said is you are under like someone already grab you. You can't run, and you need to learn some techniques to how to get away from the situation. And then the first thing you need to do is run and yell. So I remember like a couple years back, there's a very popular videos teaching how women can yell for help. Don't just yell for like help me, like I'm in danger, because normally most people on the street will ignore your message. So try to grab people's stuff, make it more personal, make it more individualized. Find a person on the street. I think this person can help you, and make a physical touch with this person and ask for help. And that's more like better than just yell for help and just like help, help, help. That sometimes that won't work.
So next, let's talk about violence in the workplace, because the truth is women are at a risk of violence regardless of whether they work at home, in the office, in the fields, or in the factories. We want to talk a little bit about sexual harassment in the workplace.
I think there is a lot like 酒桌文化 in China, especially in like the local Chinese company. You always get like people, a company or like the department have a drink together. And then like when people get drunk or even like alcohol makes people bold, right? And I think no matter the gender, right, here is whether you're a woman or a man, you can also experience like the sexual harassment. But I don't think people take it so seriously until recent years. I want to share some experience when I first moved back from Hong Kong and the job I had in Beijing. So there's a one day our department was having a dinner with the senior leadership. I still remember we had Japanese food in a like restaurant and we have like a baojian, a special room there. And something horrible happened in that room. The senior leadership is a male, right? And we have five of us are female and one male. So basically when we sit on like how we sit in around the table is very interesting. They request like the pretty girl sit in front of him. So I was like, oh, this man is so happy because he can touch the people next to him. Also, he has like his eye can look at beautiful girls like sit next to him. And there's nothing like really so special thing happen in that, like just touching the legs. But not mine. But you can't see it because I'm sitting like in front of him, right?
Oh, you were the one across from him.
Yeah.
So he cannot touch you. He could just stare at you the whole time.
Yeah. So like how I know he's touching like the women next to him is because there is another male like coworker there, and he told us after like we go to the bathroom, like we're like gossiping outside of the door. And also like we were pretty drunk at the end of the dinner, and there is a girl had the French kiss with him.
Oh,
that something
God.
really shocked me. I feel like it's mutual. So I won't call it sexual harassment. But like, even though after this, right, like the girl felt she didn't want to do this by the time.
Yeah.
That's also can count as a sexual harassment. But also what's interesting is so the whole department was like almost dismissed after a couple months. And the girl who had kissed with the boss stayed. Also, like I want to share is so in some countries, as many as 50% of female workers are concerned about violence and harassment in the workplace. So with women in some countries expressing the greatest level of worry, and even in high-income economies, where strong regulation of workplace safety and women's safety issue is a typical significant concerns about violence and harassment in the workplace were recorded in many countries. Figures range from just 3% of female workers in Singapore to 42% of Finnish female workers. And globally, the World Risk Poll finds that nearly 11% of female workers have experienced work violence and harassment, similar level to men. Men was like 12%. That's very interesting data to share.
Sometimes that happens at home as well. Like I read a news in Bangladesh, there was a woman who, just wasn't able to work in the office. And so then she ended up providing at-home salon services. And one time she was given an opportunity to go to somebody's home to, wash their hair. And then when she arrived, she was gang raped by 3 men. And like when these situations happen, oftentimes people are like, why would the woman go to another person's house? She doesn't even know them. Or why did that woman wear a short dress then? Or why does this woman talk to her male colleague in this way? The problem is not the woman. The woman is just going about her every day. It is the guys or the people who are harassing them. That's the problem. And I think that's what we want to talk about today.
Yeah. Also, like I remember the comments under the news, the Chinese girl got sexual harassment by the butler in the hotel, right? Like people are comment like, why she travel alone by herself? She should just like refuse, or she should like say something at the beginning. I don't think that's a situation like women can control. Of course, 100% is definitely not her fault. it is very unfortunate situation happened to her. I think for the society, we need to have more compassion to her and especially how we treat this. Also, I want to say if the terrible thing really happens to you, don't ever blame yourself. Maybe we next time we try to stay like alert to the surroundings, and when you travel by yourself, when you go somewhere place new, just be extra cautious. But if this happens to you, don't ever blame yourself. This is just really one of the very unfortunate things. And sometimes like things are out of our control. And I think we need to more support to the girls who suffer the situations.
Yeah, it's not okay for people to be using these crimes as an excuse for and saying, well, women should be doing this X, Y, and Z. Because if they didn't do this, then women would be able to just live the way that men do very freely.
I think we also want to provide some technology and digital resources to enhance the personal safety while traveling, such as using safety apps, sharing itineraries with trusted contacts, or accessing emergency service. So I think one of the safety apps I will recommend is Trip Visual Global SOS and Be Safe. Other than the apps, right? Like we mentioned before, make sure you share your itinerary with your friend and report your safety to your friend daily. This is very important because like if you travel by yourself, you go to somewhere it's completely new for you and you don't know anyone, there could be dangers. So you need to be stay very alert and your safety is your priority.
As stated before, I think location sharing is very important, but then also just making use of apps when you are traveling and like booking a lot of things through your apps if possible, like if that is available in the country that you're at. For example, if we were to like use Uber or Lyft, there is a safety feature in the app. So, like, if you think your Uber driver or your Lyft driver is not giving you the best vibes and you feel unsafe in that situation, you don't have to call 911 while you're in the car because that could put you at risk as well, right? But you can just use the app to notify them that something is wrong and somebody on their end will call 911 for you. That way, you are not vocally saying, hey, I'm in the car and I don't feel comfortable because the driver could hurt you in that moment.
Yeah, other than that is like use visual maps and navigation. Sometimes we really enjoy walking around, hanging around, but it might accidentally you got yourself into a very dangerous zone. So using apps like Google Maps or Citymapper to provide real-time directions information on public transportation options, right? Sometimes you get in a private car like Uber or like Grab, and then you may also take a bus or like you on a walk to experience the city. So make sure you're on the like legit map apps so it'll guide you to the right direction.
I think we covered quite a lot of areas related to women's safety. So we'll go ahead and ask our three concluding questions. So, Victoria, what are some general tips or best practices for women to stay vigilant and maintain their personal safety, regardless of their location, when navigating both familiar and unfamiliar environments?
I think one of the most important thing in this question is even though you're in your familiar locations, for example, you live in the US for a long time, it still can be dangerous. You living in the city for like 10 years, it still could be dangerous. So we often experience the fear and also the dangers that the man cannot experience. My suggestion will be always stay alert. And if you walk along on the street or in a unfamiliar space, try to call someone. If you feel like your surroundings is now like safe, you can call your friend and just talk to your friend. It's like, I don't feel safe. Can you talk to me while I walk back home? Or can you talk to me? I'm in a new place. I don't feel safe. You also bring the pepper spray with you and do exercise. Danger comes, run as fast as you can. So I think we heard a lot of like unfortunate things to women. If that truly happens to women, what should we do?
Definitely don't blame the woman. Like Victoria said before, show compassion, show empathy, and really help that person who has to relive that trauma for the rest of their lives. It's really tough to speak about these issues, and then it's really hard to have gone through it. And then to reveal that this has happened, and then for somebody else to say that they're delusional or that they were at fault in that situation is extremely wrong, I think. So just show compassion.
Yeah, also like recommend if that's something really like that's terrible happened to you, talk to your close friend and talk to them and make sure someone you can trust and they won't judge you and they will just help you and maybe go to talk to a therapist. Often talk to yourself, this is not your fault and this is not like the end of the world, and be strong.
Yeah. And obviously, like depending on how severe the situation is, take the appropriate measures as well.
What's the hope for the future? I think because we experience so many like traumatized things, I also want to share something interesting. So there is a movie. It's very popular in China. Recently, it called Lost in the Stars. Chinese is 消失的她. So it basically tells a story a rich girl and she met her future husband, and the husband has a bad habit of gambling and he lost a lot of money, and the girl doesn't want to help him anymore because she thinks if I help you and give you money anymore, it's just like that will kill you. So that triggers him to kill the girl when they go to diving. I think this society is not very friendly to women. So especially for these situations, I think we want to address our hope like for the future. We really hope the world can be a better place, start showing compassion, empathy, and especially for girls or for women, I think the first important thing is to love yourself first and to support the people around you and show the love to the people around you. And we really hope this can be like a safe place for women.
Yeah. Hoping everybody is more supportive of one another in the future. Just people, humans support humans.
We hope like people like really talk about it. This is not something you would be ashamed of. That's your experience, and talk about it. We hope like whoever listened to this podcast, this episode will help you to start think about it and step forward and talk to people you trust.
Great. Well, thank you all for listening today and joining us for this very important conversation. If you found this episode to be helpful, please feel free to share with your friends, family, and community members. We really appreciate that. And if you have any comments or thoughts you'd like to share with us, feel free to comment below. We read through all of your comments and really, really appreciate every time you guys talk to us. And if you have any topics that you would like us to talk about in the future, please let us know as well. And we'll see you again next Wednesday. Chat soon.
Bye.
Bye.